The Electrolux 65 from 1960, a copper-bottomed classic if ever there was one. This machine was a massive seller and it was probably one of the best vacuum cleaners that Electrolux ever made. The quality was superb, the engineering was superb. So what happens if you take something that's essentially Swedish and you take it from the 60s and move it to the 70s and give it a Spanish twist? What would that look like? Ah, no, copyright, no, we'll get banned. Stop it, stop it. Before I show you today's star of the show, I think it's worth talking about the 65 a little bit more. This particular cleaner that I've got here is not in great condition. It's had a hard life, let's put it that way. And unfortunately it got broken in transit as well. As you can see, the back panel there is all smashed up, which is a real shame. But this probably won't be used. It's just a prop for this video, really, because it takes us to the star of the show. It's really odd, this vacuum cleaner that I've got to show you in this video. As I say, this design is from 1960, and it's very unusual for a company to take a design that's so old and then use it again later on. You don't see it happening very often, but that is exactly what Electrolux did in the 1970s with the Model 83, and it's the 83 that I've got to show you. So just bearing in mind the shape and style of this 65, I'm going to pop it over here so we can still see it. This interesting D shape. Yeah, this looks old, but let's take it to the 70s and give it a Spanish twist. And what do you get? Well, when you do that, you get the Electrolux Model 83. Now this is a bizarre vacuum cleaner. I bought this from eBay. I think it again came from France, like the Moors/Fam did. And I've never ever seen one in my entire life. I have the feeling that this was probably the budget machine for Spain. And it was actually made in Spain on the ratings plate. It actually states that. If I have a look, I'll read it to you. So this is a Model Z83, serial number 01706, which dates it to June of 1977. And it says, Fabricando en España. So yeah, definitely made in Spain. And it's 220 volts as opposed to our usual 240. The colour is just fantastic. It is just such a 1970s colour. If you look at that, we've got this like yellow gold vinyl, yellow gold end here, and then this really nice black trim as well, and then this lovely sort of bronze effect on the top section here. You can see what they've done, and they've changed the design of the 65. If I put that like that so you can see it, this is very much more basic. The 83 has certainly more of a stylistic look to it. But why did they do it? And do you know what? I really can't answer that question. Electrolux had this model structure where, actually I'm just going to get rid of the 65, we're finished with that. They had a model structure where they would have a basic budget cleaner, a middle of the line cleaner, and then top of the line. So if you think what was around in 1977, the budget cleaner that we had in the UK was the 87, and that was launched in 1970, replaced by the 96 in 1979. The middle of the road machine would have been the 302, which would have been replaced by 303 again in 79, and the top of the line machine was the 345. So quite why they've got this 83 in Spain, I just don't really understand it. It makes no sense. Surely you would have thought that they would have produced the 87 over there. There may have been some reason for it, like a localised produced machine would have had less tax applied to it. If they had to make the 87 in the UK or Sweden or Germany possibly, and then import the cleaner, there may well have been a tax levy applied to it, and import tax, which would have made the cleaner more expensive in the localised market. So in that respect, it makes more sense to produce a machine locally and sell it within your localised country. That may well be what happened here with the 83. But again, as I say, I don't know why did they choose to use this 65 style. It just doesn't make any sense. But that lack of sense has produced this wonderful cleaner. I have to say, it's one of my personal favourites now. The colour of it just really stands out. I hope you can see it on the camera, just how much this actually glows. It's fantastic. It has such a wonderful look to it. So what did they change between the 65 and the 83? Not a great deal, I have to say. Not much was changed between the two machines. They are essentially the same, but there are a couple of minor differences. Obviously the first difference is this top section here. This is completely new. 65, as you've seen, just has the handle riveted on the front. This has this section with the bronze slats. By this time Electrolux were using the 3-lug hose, so 83 has the 3-lug connection on its faceplate. Now if you look at the 65, this particular 65 down here has had a 3-lug conversion done on it. You'll see there that a piece of plastic has been glued into the faceplate there in order for the machine to take the 3-lug hose. 65 originally had the ball bearing method of attaching the hose, which was frankly awful. It was terrible. They used to just, because they didn't get taken out of the cleaner very often, the hose was usually left in it, they would seize up, and it became almost impossible to get the hose out of the cleaner's face. And most of the time when people tried to do it, they'd use tools or these great big wrenches, and they twist the hose because they didn't know you actually had to push it in to pull it out. It's a really silly way of doing it. They try to twist it, but they then end up breaking the plastic of the faceplate. Which is not brilliant, not a good idea. So yeah, this one uses the 3-lug hose. I'm just going to attach that back on like so. And the filter is different as well. I'm just going to unwrap the flex. So the 65 used like a cage filter, and then it had a nut that went through, a bolt rather, and then you tightened it with your hand, and that held it in place. But the 83 has a much simpler style of filter. This flap actually folds down like so. It's incredibly hard to get it open. I'll try and do it. Oh no, I did it. Oh wow. I really struggled with that when I first got the cleaner. And then you can take the grill off, and then you have access to the filter pad like so. So that's your filter pad, much simpler than the 65s. And then again you have a 3-lug hole here for blowing. Now what is quite fascinating is that that's the same back plate there that holds the motor in place as on the 65. Now the 65 has a little brass thread. It's just in there, and that's what the nut goes in through and into to hold the filter cage and the metal panel in place. Obviously that's not used on the 83, but the moulding is still there for it. So just reassemble like so, pop this back in, pop this door back on, and then just push it in, and it should lock into place. Should. Okay, that was incredibly difficult to get back on. I'm not surprised that most people didn't bother to take that off. It's very difficult. The plastic is quite thin, and if you apply too much pressure to that grate there on the back, it will just snap. What else to say about it? Well, much like the 65, it uses the cloth bag, and there's no pre-motor filter, so you just have the standard Electrolux cloth bag. I've popped a paper bag in this one. I don't have the cage that goes over the front of the bag to hold it in place, so I just gingerly folded some paper over just to keep it in place, and the face pushes down quite nicely on it, so that holds the paper in place. Pretty standard inside. As I say, no pre-motor filter on this model, much like the 65 didn't have it either. Just get that back in like so. And get that back on. Slightly tricky from this angle. The motor as well is exactly the same motor as the one that's used in the 65. It's the 650 watt unit that has the springs between the fan casing and the field coil. It's quite a good idea actually. It's a clever way of reducing noise. The field and the armature never actually touch the fan case, so they are suspended by the pressure of the back plate and the body, pushing them closer. And there's 4 springs on the bottom of the field, and those are the only parts which touch the fan case. So you imagine that the field's there with the armature coming through and the 2 fans, so they are completely independent of the fan case, which reduces noise. It's a clever idea, completely over engineered, but that's what they did in the 60s, and this is essentially a 1960s cleaner, so that's what we get. So when I bought this one, I got the original hose with it, and I was really happy to get that. I thought, oh yeah, brilliant, awesome, I've got an original hose. Sadly, no other tools, no rods or floor tools. I just want to show you the hose a second. Let's get the 83 out of the way. Here's the machine's original hose. And this is also another massive clue to the fact that it was a budget cleaner. There's no suction control on this bent end at all. It is literally just a bent end. It is a piece of aluminium, and that's it. That's what you got for your budget Spanish machine. Now, sadly, whilst the hose looks in really good nick, it is completely knackered. It has totally failed at every single point. I don't think there's any part of this hose which is airtight anymore, and it's also got a bit crushed as well in the box there, which is quite sad. You can feel the air coming out of it when it's plugged into the machine and it's running. So this is now completely useless, which is a real shame, but never mind. We have it for display purposes, and sadly that's all it's good for anymore. So I had to think, what kind of tools could we put with this machine when we use it? And the ones I've selected are from an Electrolux 302, 1975 302. That was the mid-range machine. The 87, I think, still would possibly have had a woven hose, although by this point in the 70s, Lux had virtually moved over completely towards the crush-proof style hose. So this is as I say, a 302 toolkit with the wand, and the standard 302 budget flip over floor tool. It would be really interesting to know what style tools the 83 would have had when it was made. I can't find any pictures of it on Google. I've tried numerous search terms. Can't turn it up at all. It must have been a particularly rare cleaner. just, for it to have not left any kind of online trace. If any of you know about the 83, if you know its history, why Lux chose to make it in Spain, what the point of the thing was, please leave us a comment below the video. It's always really interesting to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions on the vacuum cleaners that I show. So, with that being said, let's take it into the lounge and give it a run.